Good evening. Welcome to Dr. Milton's Social Work Show. I'm Dr. Barbara Milton, Hudson County resident, career social worker. Happy to come to you today with a topic that I feel quite personally strong about, and perhaps you do too. And that topic I want to speak about in today's program is around two important words: civility and respect. And why am I choosing these two words to talk about today? Because maybe you see what I see happening in the world, in the real world and in the virtual world, the world of Twitter, the world of Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and the world of in our neighborhoods, walking our streets, in our stores, driving in our cars. What we're noticing is what seems to be a breakdown in civility and a breakdown in respect. And perhaps it's been going on a long time. I happen to think that it's worsened over the last 10 years or so. But whatever it is, I feel like there's a need to wake up and to look at this reality, and for adults to take responsibility for our behaviors and our actions and how we are modeling our responses to situations, to people who are different, to situations where things don't go our way, when there's gridlock, when our team doesn't win, when our politicians don't win, when our sports teams don't win, when we have sort of preconceived notions of how people should be acting, or for that matter, preconceived notions about who should be in America. Like, what is an American? All of a sudden, we're kind of taking big swings at like what it means to be American, what that looks like. And so these are very scary times in my view. I mean, I'm not trying to raise an alarm. I'm not putting fear out there. I mean, I really feel like there's so much good in the world. There really is. I mean, there's good in me, there's good in my family, there's good in many, my neighbors. There's plenty of good going on in the world. There is evidence of fundamental respect and places where civility still reigns. But it's something that, you've noticed it. You have noticed it, haven't you? That, people just don't talk nice to each other. People just don't say hi like they used to. Everybody's on edge. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about these two concepts in this episode. So let's talk about civility and respect. So what is civility? Civility is an essential behavior of citizens in society. These are interpersonal rules of engagement, how we relate to each other, the fundamentals of courtesy, politeness, and consideration. Do you know what I'm talking about, right? To be civil is to relate in a kind, polite, and considerate way. And respect connects us at a personal level. It reflects an attitude developed from deep listening and understanding. It's cultural and personal sensitivity. It's compassion. It honors all the participants in an interaction by creating a safe place to have difficult conversations and leads to an environment of honesty and mutual trust. Now, I heard all of this around the holidays. People were like, oh my God, the politics in this country are dividing families. And maybe that's true, you know. But there was this call out to people to let love and bonds in your family, let the respect you have by sharing blood with someone carry you through a conversation where you might differ and disagree. Politics, policies, religion, that kind of thing, right? That somehow respect can connect us, even if we don't agree, even if we have fundamental disagreements with people, that we can still have compassion and we can learn from other people. That's the beauty of respecting someone. If we adopt the attitude that we're listening for the purpose of understanding, then we stand to receive an enormous gift of better understanding someone who's different than you are, right? Look, my aunts in Texas, hey, they carry guns. They, you know, I happen to believe the Second Amendment came about at a time when militias were needed in this country, around the time of the Revolutionary War. I don't think we need militia now. I think we have a standing army in America. I think if we still hunted and gathered, and perhaps some rural communities do, that it's fine to have guns to hunt and for sport, even though it repulses me that, people kill animals for sport. But people do. I don't. And the rise in gun violence in general, schools and movie theaters and synagogues and churches and all of that makes me not want to have a gun. Okay? But people have guns in my family. So am I going to let that be a wedge between me and my aunts? No. I need to engage them. I engage them. It's the result of a respectful relationship. I can still trust them even though they are gun toters and I'm not, because I respect them. I want to be engaged with my family. It's a higher principle in my life, and I know that having civility with them, agreeing to disagree, having courtesy and politeness is a way to uh, sustain my connections with my family. Now, what is uncivil behavior? What are we talking about here? It's the failing to acknowledge another person's presence, right? Just ignoring people. That could really set someone off, right? That happened to me when I was in line the other day at a grocery store. Like I was standing there in line holding my stuff, and some woman just like stood in front of me and went to go. Like that was just like rude. Maybe that's another word, right? Rude. It was uncivil and it was rude behavior. And I was like, oh. I had to take some deep breaths and say, excuse me, but I am in line. And she was like, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm like, that's okay. That's all right. No problem. Right? I could have chose to say some other things. I could have escalated it rather than de-escalated. But I was kind and courteous. I respected her. I didn't assume the worst. I just simply said, hey, this was where I was. And you know what? If she had told me she was in a real hurry, that she had a dog in the car, or she needed to get out really quickly, I would have totally let her go in front of me, right? Like, why not? What's wrong with being nice, right? Um, Using abusive language, uncivil behavior. Now, I went to a Jets game, and they happened to be, and this was a few years back when Tony Romo was playing for the Dallas Cowboys. I do not like the Dallas Cowboys. People in my family do. But anyway, I'm sitting in this seat I paid a lot of money for down on the 45-yard line, and surrounded by all kinds of people and families, little kids. And next thing I hear this chant, uh, you know, Romo's a homo, Romo's a homo. And I lost it. I was so upset. What a horrible, horrible thing for those children to be hearing. I didn't want to hear it. I thought it was quite abusive. Tony Romo, I mean, that was quite disrespectful to him. One of the most premier, quarterbacks in the league. Hall of Famer, probably. I don't know. He'll probably be a Hall of Famer. Maybe he is already. I don't know. I don't know sports all that well. I do know some sports. But anyway, it was using the abusive language. It's the cursing, it's the calling names, it's stuff we see way too much on television, way too much in reality shows. And I'm sad to say, I never thought I'd see it, not publicly, not so openly, but in this current person living in the White House and the kind of abusive language that comes out of his mouth is so unbecoming. And I'm sure other presidents curse. In fact, I know they do. I've read lots of books about Johnson and Reagan and Lincoln and Kennedy and the Roosevelts and Andrew Jackson. And I've read a lot of books about presidents. And so, yeah, they cursed and they used the language of their times, but you didn't hear it coming out in a podium at a press conference. You didn't see it tweeted out all over the Twitterverse. It's very unbecoming. It's uncivil behavior. Gossiping, discounting other people's contribution, like taking credit for something someone else does. That's uncivil behavior. Bullying, intimidating others. We just experienced this big event in America, this impeachment trial of the person in the White House, right? And now, when you're hearing the afterthoughts of many of the senators and others in DC, you're hearing them say things like, I was afraid that I'd be intimidated, bullied, talked badly about, that all hell was going to break loose if I voted against the Republican leaders. That's uncivil behavior. Sabotaging someone's success, discriminating against a person or a group, uncivil behavior, illegal behavior as well. Practicing insensitivity against others, and practicing poor etiquette in dealing with correspondence. And I think I wanted to make sure that was in there because uncivil and disrespectful behavior can happen face to face, also happen through correspondence, through libel and defamation, right? That's uncivil behavior. It's also illegal. Twitter, emails, Facebook, all of those kinds of ways we communicate with one another are venues for capturing uncivil and disrespectful behaviors. Now, why should we be civil? I mean, there's no escaping it. As cliche as it might sound, no man is an island. What does that mean? We all need each other. We're all related to one another. We're all connected to one another. And this is what it is, right? This is what it is. That we are dependent upon one another to survive. And if maybe you're a bazillionaire, you have every creature comfort in the world, every liberty and freedom in the world, and you feel like you won't need anybody ever, well, guess what? The day will come. The day will come when we are dependent on one another, right? There are so many benefits to practicing civil behavior. Some of the benefits are proven by empirical research. And I'm sorry for this typo here, I'm just noticing. But the more civil a society, it is a measure of the kind of rich and full engagement of people. There's increased productivity at every single level, in the family, in the schools, in the houses of worship, in the neighborhoods, in the local government, in workplaces, and factories, and every kind of way. Morale is better, people are healthier and happier when there's more respect and civility. And apart from all of that, that we are human beings, interdependent on one another, with lots of benefits for getting along and relating well with one another, the bottom line is sort of a moral issue. It's simply the right thing to do. Nothing else. Being respectful and being civil is the right thing to do. And we know this. Somewhere along the line, that was said to us. If you grew up in the Judeo-Christian belief system, that is a value that was indoctrinated inculcated in you, right? How we treat one another. And I think across all religions, there are similar practices and values around relating civilly, around being respectful, around honoring your parents, around honoring one another, turning the cheek, offering up forgiveness and atonement for others, right? This is something we were all raised on. Now, additional reasons to practice civility are every person, regardless of age, race, or contribution, just deserves it, deserves to be treated with respect. You want it, I want it, everybody wants it. Civility resonates with many of the positive values of society, including tolerance and mutual support. It is the humane thing to do. Civility creates a conducive working environment as well as stable and productive institutions and societies, right? So again, the happier, the more healthy people's relationships are, that engagement is, that the ripple effect outward into our society is just evident. And more productivity, better health, better happiness. Here's a question for you. If you're good at what you do, you don't need to bother being civil to other people. True or false? Easy, right? Of course that's false. We never have a license to treat people as less than, as other than. We don't. How does civility set the stage for effective communication with a person perceived to have differing personalities or views? Now, this is really interesting. If you act with civility towards a person with a differing personality or view, you'll be able to constructively discuss what your perceptions are. It will be productive. We're not all the same. We're not all cookie cutter. We all have different lived experiences. We all have different worldviews, perceptions. We all have different opinions. It's what makes the world wonderful, actually, that we're not all cloned and the same. So, you know, if you're welcome and open to other views, if you are polite and considerate, then you get this opportunity to constructively discuss these differences with other people. If you react with anger or defensiveness, that does not facilitate communication. In fact, they're what you call communication blockers, right? Reacting in anger or defensiveness. So that closes down communication. It does not help you learn anything about the other or anything about yourself. Civility helps make a person feel acknowledged and appreciated, which makes them open to the feedback you might give them, right? It makes you more open. You get a wider expression of the other person when you are respectful and civil. So how do you demonstrate respect? Here's some ways you can do it. Give formal acknowledgement when you're in another person's presence. I nod, I say hello. I tend to look at people and say, acknowledge that they're here next to me. I do that everywhere. I know some people think, oh my God, don't say hi to strangers. But I nod. I see you. That's kind of what I convey. I see you, and I smile most times. Every person deserves to be given attention when they're communicating. So, if someone's talking to me, they get my full attention. I'm not on my cell phone. I'm not looking up at the sky. I'm not singing. If I have headphones on, I'll take them off to communicate that, I'm with you, I'm listening. Another way to demonstrate respect is to respect other people's properties, right? For me, in my neighborhood here in Hudson County, Secaucus, if I see garbage, my neighbors, I pick it up. If there's, if I see something happening where I think their property is something's going on, I'll tend to knock on their door and say, hey, something's going on with your car, or you left your shed unlocked or whatever. But one way you indicate personal respect is to respect people's property as well. You also want to respect other people's privacy. This is very important. It's incredibly important to respect privacy. In my home here, it's a small apartment and privacy is not easy. But we put a white noise machine on when we're on phone calls so that the other person can feel like they have privacy in their phone call. Um, Knocking on doors, being respectful in that way when you're entering in rooms is very important. Not looking at cell phones and reading people's messages and opening people's mail and, not querying and pressing for information about what, people are up to. That's respecting privacy, right? And also respect the right to individual beliefs. I believe I have different beliefs than my partner, my friends, and that's fine. I respect them, they respect me. We all have the right to our individual beliefs. We respect diversity within the society. Diversity means you'll have people of different religions, political beliefs, abilities, traditions, and values all working for the same good, whether it's in your family or a workplace or an organization or the society, that we have tons of diversity and we have to respect that. Um, and also, you can practice respect by valuing another person's time. I don't know about you, but time just goes so fast. And I don't like to waste people's time. I don't like people to waste my time. I think that you can practice tons of respect, especially at your job, especially on projects that you might be doing with someone else. Like I'm writing a book right now, right? So, I have a person who's my reader, and I have to respect their time. When I say I'm giving you my book pages to review on X date, that person is ready for me on X date to receive my book. And I have to respect that person's time in order to, get them my information when I say I'm going to give it to them, right? It shows respect. Now, there are costs and rewards of being civil. Like civility can be perceived as harmless behaviors. They can be significantly affect morale. Incivility in the workplace has direct impact on productivity. Whereas civility, on the other hand, can improve all these areas considered as relevant in the successful running of an organization or a society. Definite cost. Incivility also costs. Um, with high turnover, you lose friends, you lose neighbors, you lose coworkers. Um, you know, People leave jobs, people disconnect, disassociate when they feel like they're not being treated with respect. You have people who, disappear from your life, you know. Productivity productivity decreases as a result of incivility. It creates an enormous amount of stress at the workplace and home. There's violence and rage. There are costs associated with health. There are lawsuits, settlements, a steady decline in an organization's values and culture. But there are rewards also. There's a lot of satisfaction when you have proper, respectful, civil engagement with one another. Um, your health improves, your emotional well being improves. It includes a sense of being treated well, of well being. So, the emotional impact of being received respectfully, being treated civilly, uh, produces these healthy emotion states as well. And civil behavior can be a plus for a community, it can be a plus for an organization. A good name is everything, right? So, here's a neighborhood with less violence. Here's one of the most diverse communities, like Jersey City, very, very diverse community. And yes, there's crime as in any big city, but one of the ways it is branded is around its diversity and its acceptance, and it is a magnet to attract more diversity because of that. So again, there are reasons why people are lack civility, right? A lack of self-restraint. We see this, it can be easily avoided or controlled if people can actively practice more self-restraint. And another big cause that we're seeing now in this new era of social media and virtual media is this anonymity factor. I mean, you don't know who's really typing what on a screen. And that anonymity, studies have shown that people have less inhibition when they know they can't really be made to be held accountable for their actions. You see all the vitriol, Twitter, Facebook, etc. And, that anonymity is a really big factor of that. There's also, stress causes incivility as well. You may not behave as your best higher self when you're under stress. If you're not feeling well, if you're in a bad situation, it can, personal or work-related stress can cause you to not act appropriately and civilly with another person. And the pursuit of individualism in our society. It's this very interesting thing. I could do a whole show on the issue of individualism versus, the sort of the emphasis of a society that's like e pluribus unum, right? Where we're supposed to be one but connected to all the others. And how does rugged individualism fit in the context of building a nation that's diverse, building a nation where everyone counts, all lives matter? This is an attitude that we have to reach. It's sort of like the most authentic way possible for us to see other people's lives as having value and intrinsic worth, right? And again, that's something we could talk about in much more detail. So how do we overcome this? We create, communicate, and enforce policies regarding civil behavior. We need to provide continuous education and training on how to be civil and respectful. We have to practice regular self-assessment. We have to practice new behaviors. And we have to always be examining the root causes and taking responsibility for the changes. Forgiveness is essential. Understanding that holding on to negative feelings, grudges, is just not healthy. Resentments, not healthy. It's hard to move forward with treating people with respect when you are harboring negative feelings. We have to humanize other people. Right? It's so easy to say, oh, that's the other. We have to humanize the offenders. People that do offenses to us, we have to humanize them. We have to remember that we have our own transgressions. We know we can choose to forgive even if the other person won't admit their fault. We're not perfect, and nor should we have that expectation of others. And if you want to work on forgiveness of another person, actively find ways to rid yourself of your own anger and resentments. As adults, we have a moral responsibility to model appropriate behavior, to teach appropriate behaviors, to correct inappropriate behaviors, to support appropriate behavior, to raise children with social and communication skills that will enable them to live happy, healthy lives. I hear this all the time. We want the world to be a better place. We want the world to be a safer place. Well, we have to be the change we want to see in the world. That's what